Hello, everyone. My name is Bernadette Smith, and I am CEO of Equality Institute. And I am joined by Patti Flynn. Patti, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Patti Flynn, and I'm a senior DEI strategy consultant at Equality Institute.
Thank you so much for being here with me today for 5 Things in 15 Minutes. This is my weekly LinkedIn Live show where I'm joined with a co-host or special guest, and we talk about good vibes in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and corporate social responsibility. I do this show every Monday on LinkedIn after I send a newsletter the previous Saturday called 5 Things. And 5 Things is all about what I find to be good news and inspiration, things that I find to be going right in the world that have to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because I believe it's important to lead from a place of inspiration rather than fear. So let's focus on what's going right and build on that. Okay, so Patti, you know what? Sometimes it's really hard to find those uplifting stories, the stories about what's going right, especially when there's a war going on. Trans rights are at stake in a bunch of US states.
Yeah.
There's racism rampant. We see it in journalists. We're seeing it at border crossings. So lots that's going wrong. So
yeah.
How do you find the silver linings?
Well, I do find them through the stories in 5 Things. I was really pretty smiley about the stuff this week. I do find myself mired into, Twitter black holes and doom scrolling, but you just have to kind of kick yourself out of it. And I do it through like sport. So, I went out for, even in this ugly weather, went out for a run this morning, and, just that time to not think about all this bad stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't channel myself into sports, but I do always, sort of try to find silver linings somehow, somewhere. One of the things that I'm reminded of constantly, as I'm looking for stories and as I'm writing, is my own privilege, my own unearned advantages, because here I am in my, nice home in the Chicago suburbs, and I'm white and I speak English and I'm from this country and I don't have a disability and I'm cisgender. Like, I have so many privileges. So I am inspired by what's going wrong, in the sense that it kind of helps me double down on my own sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a trans woman and a relatively late transitioning trans woman, I experienced a lot of privilege, and I still do. I mean, I'm white and mostly cis passing, straight passing. So, it keeps doors open. I just try to make sure to try to find stories that I can elevate. And yeah, I mean, it makes me feel good. So that's positive for me, but I just like to make sure that other folks who have privilege can get the chance to see that.
Sure, absolutely. All right, well, let's talk about this week's stories. First story is about Adidas, which has a new campaign called Impossible is Nothing. And one of the athletes profiled in the campaign is a trans woman from Brazil who is a basketball player. So her name is Tiffany Abreu.
She plays volleyball.
Oh, volleyball. I'm sorry.
Yeah, volleyball player. I watched the clip of the ad. It's amazing. Luckily, the YouTube comments are all in Portuguese, so I can't read if they're awful, which keeps me out of the comment section. And I think it's, I wrote down notes for everything, and it's representation, it's visibility. It seems as if, her teammates are on her side, right? And just that visibility and that elevation of her story from Adidas it's a big deal. I mean, I know that. I think we've already talked about a runner and being featured in an ad campaign, and I can't remember what the company was, but she's in the same campaign as Lionel Messi, right? He's part of the same campaign. He's a worldwide star. And so she's given the same platform, right? And then I let it play a little bit longer. And as it finished, it kicked over to the next one. And there was a track and field athlete from India who was being celebrated as well. And so, and she was, it's not, India's not known for being the track and field juggernaut, especially for women. And so it's good to see that representation as well. Adidas is a worldwide company. And so they're picking people from across the world. And it's good to see that.
It is good to see that, especially in light of the bills and laws that are being passed here in the U.S. That are anti-transgender, especially against trans women athletes, young trans women athletes. And also, Brazil has a lot of violence against trans women, a lot, in South America in general. And so I think that's notable too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is highlighting someone who lives in a country where there is a lot of violence and hostility.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you're right talking about all those. I mean, talking about the negative part in the United States with all those bills. And 11 of the states actually have bills that go and prohibit up and through NCAA, which, we're talking about people who are of age, over 18, generally speaking. And it's really, that it's good to see that representation in the face of all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on a similar note, the company Clubhouse was supposed to attend the South by Southwest conference in Austin, Texas, and they actually pulled out of attending because of some anti-LGBTQ stuff that Governor Abbott is doing or trying to do, basically to try to get parents of trans kids investigated for child abuse, which is horrifying. Anyway, Clubhouse pulled out of South by Southwest because they don't want their LGBTQ community members to feel like they can't be themselves. And I really respect that. Again, sort of, really being proactive about this, taking a stand about this, because I don't know about you, Patti, I'm not seeing a lot of companies really speaking out against this stuff. And by the way, anyone who's watching, if you know of companies that are speaking out against this stuff, please share it in the comments or let me know, because there aren't a lot of stories here.
Yeah, it's really, it was in a Slack group conversation, or I saw a Slack conversation about asking, like, where are the companies saying that they're not going to do this? I think part of the issue right now is that so many states are doing these types of actions that there's nowhere to go. Yeah, there are, but it's not like when I think it was HB 2 in North Carolina. That was a single event, and there was a lot of backlash, and that same kind of backlash isn't occurring right now at a corporate level, which engenders more of these laws coming up. Iowa just passed a law. That's a state right next door to us.
Yeah.
It's psychologically very difficult. So when you see a company like Clubhouse move from allyship, which is really just waving a flag and changing your logo during Pride Month, into being an accomplice, not only are they not going to go to South by Southwest, they're taking all the travel costs and donating it to local organizations and hosting on their platform, I guess, sort of a speaker series to have trans folks talk and elevate their message. So, it's that multi-layered approach. It's more than just, no, we're not going to go. We're going to take the money that we would have spent going and direct it to help people.
Absolutely. You're right. I didn't actually get to that. I didn't see that part of the story. So thanks for Thanks for filling it in. All right, next story comes from Ferrara Candy, which is actually a client of ours. And they have a really great approach to better understanding their customer base, better customizing their products because to their customer base. And they're doing that through their business resource groups, which I think is really fun. It's something that Target does as well. It engages employees, it creates better products, it increases revenue because customers love this stuff. So it's very cool. Big shout out to Ferrara.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, it's great to see companies understanding that diverse perspectives can help them drive business decisions, and then engaging those BRGs, ERGs, and it takes it beyond sort of an affinity club and involves them in actual business decisions. And so I see that as such a positive move.
Absolutely.
And, it's one of those things when people ask, like, how does this matter? How does diversity matter? How does this inclusion stuff matter? This is how it matters. You get different voices.
Absolutely. All right. Next up is LinkedIn. They have now enabled a feature to allow users to add a career break to their profile. So career breaks can be for, apparently, if I'm hungry, career breaks can be used to indicate full-time parenting, bereavement leaves, caregiving, layoffs, etc. And I think this is great because, there's a lot of pressure to have no gaps, right? But that means that some people aren't authentic. They're not getting their own needs met. So I think this is really cool for LinkedIn.
I mean, basically, it's allowed us to not have to lie or, like, put vague freelance consulting gigs in there as our gap, right? And I think that they realize the reality of COVID, and it's caused a lot of folks to, it's major disruption, but also for folks who are involved in parenting. The person who's in charge of that gets an opportunity to not only say, like, this is what I was doing during this time. This is valid and important.
Valid.
And typically those roles are filled by people who have a harder time in the job market. And it allows them to even, like it was stating, how they can put different things in there about, like, how there are transferable skills out of that break that you've had. So you get to explain it a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you're right. It normalizes the breaks. Yeah. And the breaks are more disproportionately had by women and underrepresented folks. So it definitely it gives them a little bit more authentic. Well, I say authenticity, you say that they don't lie.
Yeah, I just kind of cut to the reality of it, right?
Right, absolutely. Okay, last story of this week is that Citibank, is the largest bank in the U.S. to eliminate overdraft fees for its customers, which is huge. It actually will cost the bank about $100 million annually, so a significant amount of money. But it is empowering and helpful, especially, again, for women and underrepresented folks who are more heavily penalized by those fees.
Yeah. And although I've been relatively okay at doing it and avoiding fees, it's got me thinking about switching, because the bank that I use, and I won't name names, had about $800 million in overdraft fees. And although they're switching to reduce it by a third, the costs, they're still there. And I like what and I'm going to paraphrase, because I don't want to, like, just read the article, but I think it was one of their C-level executives, it might have even been their CEO, explained why it was important. I mean, it hits those who are least available to afford it, or at least can least afford it. And it gives folks a time to recover at a time they're going to need it the most. It could help keep a household solvent. Yeah. I mean, that was the most telling line, that he's like, this is something that, some people might look at it uncritically because of privilege, as we discussed before, and, getting dinged for $35. might not have as big of an impact to them. But there are a lot of folks that $35 is a significant. I mean, I can't afford it, and I know that there are a lot of folks who can't. So, and $100 million to them, they can make that up by moving. Like what that does is it moves people to check cashing and keeping cash in their mattress, right? And so obviously there's a business goal for them is to bring more deposits in.
Right.
So, and it does save folks that check cashing places are expensive.
Sure, they are. Yeah, this is a great win. I mean, the racial wealth gap is real, the gender wealth gap is real, and this is just one small way to help reduce that. Now, only if only the city of Chicago would remove red light cameras from low income neighborhoods, because I swear I never get a red light ticket in or a speeding ticket in any higher income neighborhoods in the city. And I feel anyway, I'll
I agree with that.
I will let that one go. But thank you all for joining me and Patti today for 5 Things in 15 Minutes. And if you don't already get the 5 Things newsletter, you can subscribe at 5thingsdei.com. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Patti. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Bye.